Nathan Hayes grabbed his daughter's outstretched arm and yanked it down hard the way you grab a live wire before it kills someone. Don't point. But Lily had already said it. Loud, clear, no hesitation. Dad, marry her. The woman heard it. She stopped walking, turned her head just slightly and looked at them the way people look at something unexpected on the sidewalk. Not rude, worse than rude, briefly amused. Then she put her sunglasses on and kept moving. Nathan's jaw locked, because that woman, the one his 4-year-old daughter had just publicly claimed for him, was Victoria Vale. The Victoria Vale, whose face was on the cover of Forbes 3 months ago. And she had just walked away like he was nobody. He was going to make sure that was the last time. Drop your city in the comments. I want to see how far this story travels. And if you're new here, hit subscribe. You won't want to miss what happens next. The bench was cold. Nathan noticed that first the way the October air had already started biting through his jacket, the way the wood felt damp beneath his palms. Millhaven Park had that particular kind of quiet on Sunday mornings, the kind that felt almost holy, like the city was still deciding whether to wake up or not. Bare trees, a dog walker in the distance. The faint smell of coffee from somewhere he couldn't see. He liked it. That was the truth he never said out loud to anyone. He liked the quiet. Craved it even. After 4 days on base, after the noise and the orders and the relentless mechanical rhythm of Navy life, these Sunday mornings felt like the only time Nathan Hayes could actually hear himself breathe. Lily was 3 feet away, crouched over a crack in the sidewalk, completely absorbed in whatever tragedy was unfolding between an ant and a broken potato chip. "Dad?" she said, not looking up. "This ant is working really hard." He's been working since we got here." "He's got a family to feed," Nathan said. Lily looked up at him, then completely serious. "Like you?" He laughed. It came out softer than he expected. "Yeah, baby. Like me." She went back to the ant. Nathan leaned forward, elbows on his knees, and let his eyes drift toward the park entrance. The wide stone path, the iron gate, the Sunday morning trickle of joggers and dog walkers, and couples with strollers. He watched them the way he always did. Not with longing exactly, more like the way you watch a movie you've already seen the ending of. You're not sad, you're just aware. He'd been a widower for 3 years, 2 months and 11 days. He'd stopped counting the days about 6 months ago, or tried to. The number just showed up sometimes uninvited, the way all the worst things do. Emma had been 29, a school librarian. She used to fold the corners of paperback books, and he used to pretend it bothered him. She'd been gone before Lily's 2nd birthday, and there were days, bad days, when Nathan looked at his daughter and saw her so clearly in the shape of her eyes, the stubborn set of her jaw, that it felt like breathing underwater. But Lily didn't know that. Lily knew Sunday mornings at Millhaven Park. Lily knew her dad made the best scrambled eggs. Lily knew every word to 3 different Disney songs and could be bribed with apple juice. So Nathan kept showing up. Every Sunday. In the cold, in the heat, in the rain, once Lily had thought the rain was hilarious. He kept showing up because she needed him to, and because somewhere under the grief and the exhaustion and the weight of being the only person standing between his daughter and the world, he still believed that showing up mattered. "Dad?" "Yeah." "Dad." More urgent now. He looked over. Lily was standing up completely still, one arm extended, finger pointing toward the park gate. "Marry her," she said. Nathan blinked. "What?" "That lady." Lily's voice was firm, the way 4-year-olds get when they've made a decision, and they're confused why the adults haven't caught up yet. "Marry her dad." He followed her finger. A woman was walking through the gate. No, not walking. Moving. There was a difference. She moved like someone who had places to be, and had never in her life considered that the world might not make room for her. Tall, dark coat, dark hair pulled back tight. She wasn't looking at her phone, wasn't rushing, but there was something in the line of her shoulders that said she was always thinking. A black Mercedes idled near the curb behind her. A driver. She had a driver. She didn't look at them. Didn't look at anything really, just the path ahead of her, the trees, the distance. Like she'd come to the park for a reason, and the reason was private. Nathan realized his mouth was open. He closed it. Lily. She's pretty, Lily said helpfully, as if he'd missed the obvious part of the equation. You can't just... He stopped, rubbed the back of his neck. Baby, you don't just tell someone to marry a stranger. Why? Because... He exhaled. Because that's not how it works. Lily tilted her head, the exact same way Emma used to. How does it work? He had absolutely no answer for that. He'd had no answer for a lot of things lately. Like why he still slept on his side of the bed. Like why he hadn't thrown away the coffee mug with the chipped handle that Emma had used every morning. Like why sometimes in the middle of a completely normal day, a Tuesday, a Wednesday, a nothing day, grief would hit him like a physical object, and he'd have to find somewhere to stand still for a minute. The woman walked deeper into the park. Gone. Just like that. Nathan turned back to his daughter. Come here. Lily climbed up onto the bench beside him, wedging herself under his arm, her small body warm and unapologetic about the amount of space she took up. He pulled her closer. I miss Mommy sometimes, she said quietly. His chest tightened. Me too, Bug. Is that why you don't have a lady friend? He almost choked. Where did you even learn that phrase? Ms. Patterson at school. Lily looked up at him entirely unconcerned. She says her brother needs a lady friend because he's sad. I'm not sad. She patted his hand with great solemnity. Dad, you make that face sometimes. What face? The faraway face. She demonstrated eyes going distant, mouth going flat. It was alarmingly accurate. Like this. He stared at her. I do not look like that. You do. She went back to watching the park. The lady would probably fix it. Lily, I'm just saying. You're 4. I'll be 5 in March. She said it like it settled something. He laughed again, a real one this time, helpless and full. He pressed a kiss to the top of her head, and she tolerated it for exactly 2 seconds, before wiggling free to chase a leaf. He didn't think about the woman again. That was what he told himself on the drive home, while he made Lily's lunch, while he sat through 20 minutes of her favorite cartoon, while he did the dishes, and checked his phone for base notifications. He wasn't thinking about her, the way she moved, the driver, the coat, the complete and total indifference to a man and his daughter on a bench. He wasn't thinking about any of it. He was thinking about the stack of paperwork on the kitchen table, the parent-teacher conference next Thursday, the transmission noise his truck had started making, the grocery run he'd been putting off for 4 days. He was thinking about real things, grounded things. He was still thinking about her when he fell asleep. Monday hit the way Mondays always do, fast and without mercy. He was up at 04:30, coffee in hand. Lily still asleep in her room, with her stuffed elephant and approximately 40 other animals she'd decided were also necessary. He moved through the apartment quietly, the way he'd learned to do in those first terrible months after Emma, feet light, every motion deliberate, as if the silence were something fragile he was trying not to break. He left a note on this kitchen counter. Pancakes in the fridge, maple syrup on the second shelf. Don't let Mrs. Kowalski give you too many cookies. Love, Dad. Mrs. Kowalski from next door was 72 and completely incapable of saying no to Lily. It was a flaw Nathan had decided was actually a blessing. Base was its own world. It always had been the kind of place that swallowed you whole and expected you to be grateful for it. Nathan had joined at 22, fresh out of a small Ohio town, with the specific ambition of becoming the kind of man who didn't flinch. He'd gotten pretty good at it. You had to. The Navy didn't have a lot of use for men who flinched. But the Navy also didn't have a lot of advice for what to do when you came home to a 4-year-old who cried because she missed her mother, and you had to be the one to hold her while also being the one who was falling apart. He'd figured it out. Mostly. Sergeant Cole intercepted him near the equipment bay around 0900. Cole was 6'2", built like a refrigerator, and had the particular skill of saying exactly what you didn't want to hear at the exact wrong moment. "You look rough," Cole said. "I look fine." "You look like a man who didn't sleep." "I slept." Cole fell into step beside him. "Lily okay?" "She's great." Nathan meant it. Whatever else was complicated, Lily was great. She was the most uncomplicated thing in his life. "She told me to get married yesterday." Cole stopped walking. "She what?" Pointed at a stranger in the park, said marry her. Cole stared at him for a long moment, and then he started laughing, deep rolling laughter that bounced off the equipment bay walls. "That kid?" he managed. "That kid." It wasn't funny. It's extremely funny. "She's 4 years old, making life decisions for me, Cole." "Maybe you should let her." Cole was grinning now. "Couldn't do worse than you've been doing on your own." Nathan gave him a look that would have stopped a lesser man. Cole was not a lesser man. "When's the last time you went on a date?" Cole asked. "I don't have time." "When's the last time you talked to a woman who wasn't Mrs. Kowalski or Lily's teacher?" "That's—" Nathan stopped, started. "That's not the metric I'm measuring my life by." "What metric are you measuring it by?" He didn't answer. Cole clapped him once on the shoulder hard and moved on. The call came on Wednesday. He almost missed it was halfway through a equipment check when his phone buzzed a number he didn't recognize. He stepped away, answered out of habit. "Mr. Hayes." A professional voice. Clipped efficient. "This is Westview Pediatric Development Center. We had a cancellation for Thursday's appointment. Lily Hayes is on our waiting list for speech evaluation. Are you available at 2 p.m.? He'd put Lily on that list 6 months ago after her preschool teacher had flagged a mild delay in certain pronunciation patterns. Not serious, probably developmental, but the kind of thing you followed up on because you were her only parent, and following up was the only control you had. "I'll be there," he said. Westview was a quiet building near the edge of downtown Clean Professional, the kind of place with soft lighting and magazines in the waiting room that nobody read. Lily sat beside him in a plastic chair, wearing her purple jacket, swinging her feet, utterly unintimidated by her surroundings. "Is the doctor nice?" she asked. "I'm sure she is." "What if she's mean?" "She's a pediatric specialist. They're trained to be nice." Lily considered this. "Like how you're trained to be brave." He looked at her. Sometimes she said things like this, things that landed quietly and then expanded. "Yeah," he said. "Something like that." The door opened. "Lily Hayes." Nathan looked up, and the world just for a second did something strange. The woman in the doorway was wearing a white coat over a dark blouse, a badge clipped to her lapel, a tablet in her hand. She was professional composed. Her dark hair pulled back the same way it had been in the park. The same posture, the same certainty in how she stood. Different coat. Same woman. She wasn't looking at him. She was looking at Lily, crouching slightly to get to the girl's level, and her voice when she spoke was unexpectedly warm. "Hi there. You must be Lily. I'm Dr. Vale." She smiled, and it changed something in her face, opened it up in a way that the park version of her hadn't shown. "I hear you're a really good talker." Lily looked at her for a long assessing moment. Then she looked at Nathan. Nathan's brain had completely stopped functioning. "That's the lady," Lily said. Nathan made a sound that was not a word. Dr. Vale looked up. Her eyes met his dark, sharp, professionally warm, and for a fraction of a second, something flickered there. Not recognition. Something else. The particular look of a person who is very good at reading rooms and has just walked into one that is slightly off. "Mr. Hayes," she said. "Yeah." He stood, extended a hand. His voice came out steadier than he deserved. "Nathan, Dr. Victoria Vale." Her handshake was firm, brief. She looked back at Lily. "Ready to come in and talk with me for a bit?" "Yes," Lily said solemnly. Then she took Dr. Vale's hand like it was the most natural thing in the world and walked through the door without looking back. Nathan stood there for a moment in the empty waiting room. That's the lady. He sat back down, picked up a magazine he didn't read, stared at the door. 3 years of careful, deliberate, protective stillness, and a 4-year-old and a park bench, and a woman in a white coat were apparently all it had taken to start the cracking. He pressed the back of his hand to his mouth and exhaled slow. He had a feeling quiet and unreasonable and entirely unwelcome that Sunday morning was not going to be something he stopped thinking about anytime soon. He sat in that waiting room for 41 minutes. He knew because he checked his watch 3 times, and each time felt longer than the last. The magazine he'd picked up was still in his hands, open to a page about kitchen renovations he hadn't read a single word of. Somewhere down the hall, a child was laughing high-bright, the kind of laugh that only 4-year-olds can produce, the kind that sounds like it doesn't know yet that the world can be heavy. He recognized Lily's laugh. Of course he did. He'd memorized it the way some men memorize scripture. She was fine. She was in there doing great. He knew that. What he couldn't settle was everything else. He set the magazine down, leaned back, pressed his palms flat against his thighs, and stared at the ceiling the way he used to stare at the underside of a bunk on deployment, not looking for anything, just trying to locate the steady place inside himself that didn't move. Victoria Vale. He'd seen her face on a magazine cover at the base commissary 3 months ago, not because he'd bought it, not because he made a habit of reading Forbes, but because Cole had held it up across the aisle and said something like, "This woman just bought a hospital network. An actual hospital network. Who does that?" Nathan had glanced, registered the photo, the sharp composure of it, the way she looked at the camera like it was a negotiation she'd already won, and moved on. He had not connected that photograph to the woman in the park. He hadn't had reason to. He did now. Dr. Victoria Vale. 41 minutes. Lily's laugh down the hall, and the specific uncomfortable memory of her putting on sunglasses and walking away. He wasn't angry. He told himself that firmly, the same way he told himself other things that were partially true. He wasn't angry. She hadn't done anything wrong. She'd heard a 4-year-old say something strange. She'd reacted, barely reacted actually, and moved on with her life. That was a reasonable response. That was the correct response. The way it had felt, though, that was harder to explain away. He'd spent 3 years being invisible in exactly the way he'd asked to be invisible. Keeping his head down, not drawing attention, getting through each day with enough grace to be a decent father and a functional serviceman and a person who did not bother anyone with his particular variety of grief. He'd built that invisibility deliberately, brick by brick, and it had served him. It had protected him. So why, when a stranger he'd never met had looked at him for 3 seconds and looked away, did it feel like something had been confirmed that he hadn't wanted? Confirmed. The door opened. Lily came out first, always. Lily first, talking before she was fully through the doorframe. "Dad, I said the alphabet, and I only got 1 letter wrong, and Dr. Vicky says that's really good." Dr. Vicky. He stood up slowly. "Which letter?" Lily held up 4 fingers, then reconsidered. "Woo," she said. "But it's a hard one." "It is a hard one," he agreed. He looked up. Victoria Vale was standing in the doorway, tablet in hand, and for one unguarded second, she was watching Lily, the way adults sometimes watch children who remind them of something tender and gone. Then her eyes moved to Nathan, and the professional warmth snapped back into place, smooth and practiced. "Mr. Hayes, do you have a few minutes?" "Sure." She stepped back to let him into her office. He followed. Lily immediately located a basket of small toys in the corner and descended on it like a force of nature. The office was the same quiet efficiency as the rest of the building. He sat across from her desk. She sat on the other side and opened Lily's file on her tablet, and he watched her eyes move across the screen and wondered if she had any memory of Sunday morning at all. "Lily's presentation is strong," she said. Her vocabulary is actually well above average for her age. The articulation pattern her teacher flagged it's real but minor. We're looking at a slight inconsistency with certain consonant blends. Nothing structural. What does that mean practically? It means she'd benefit from 6 to 8 weeks of targeted speech sessions. Once a week, 45 minutes. The kind of thing that resolves cleanly at this age and doesn't follow her into elementary school if you catch it now. She looked up. Which you did. Her teacher caught it, he said. Something shifted in her expression. Faint. Almost nothing. You came. That counts. He didn't know what to do with that, so he nodded. When can we start? I have an opening Tuesday afternoon starting next week. Or I can refer you to one of my colleagues if the scheduling doesn't. Tuesday works. She wrote something on the tablet. He watched her hand's quick, efficient, no-wasted motion and tried to figure out how to say what he'd been sitting with for 41 minutes in the waiting room. He didn't figure it out. It came out anyway. You were at Millhaven Park on Sunday. Her pen stylus stopped. She looked up, and there it was. Not recognition exactly. The specific controlled expression of a person placing something they'd filed away. You were on the bench, she said, carefully. Yeah. A pause. With your daughter. Yeah. He kept his voice level, neutral, the voice he used on base when something wasn't sitting right and he needed more information before he decided how to feel about it. She said something to you. I'm sorry about that. She's 4 and she... He stopped, started again. She doesn't have a filter yet. Victoria Vale set the tablet down. She folded her hands on the desk in front of her, and she looked at him with the particular directness of someone who has spent a professional lifetime reading people and has decided in this moment to stop doing that and just be honest. She said marry her, she said. Yeah. Referring to me. Yeah. Something moved through her face that wasn't quite amusement and wasn't quite discomfort. It was faster than either of those things. Children are direct, she said. That's one word for it. She seems like she knows what she wants. She absolutely does. He exhaled. She gets that from her mother. It came out before he'd decided to say it. The way it always did when it was true, undefended, unannounced, just sitting there in the air between them. He watched it land, watched her not look away from it. I'm sorry, she said. Quiet, not professional, actually quiet. 3 years ago. He didn't know why he was telling her. It's... He paused. You find a way to carry it. She didn't offer anything in return. She didn't fill the silence with noise the way most people did, the awkward condolences, the reflexive, she's in a better place. Or at least you have Lily. She just let what he'd said exist without trying to fix it. He noticed that. Filed it somewhere he didn't have a label for. Lily appeared at his elbow holding a small plastic giraffe. Dad, can I keep this? No. What if I give it back next week? He looked at her. Put it back in the basket. She looked at Victoria. Dr. Vicky, can I borrow the giraffe? Victoria pressed her lips together in a way that was very clearly suppressing a smile. Tell you what, if you come back Tuesday and you work hard, I'll let you hold the giraffe for the whole session. Lily considered this like it was a legal negotiation. Then she put the giraffe back in the basket with great ceremony. Deal, she said, and walked back to the toys. Nathan watched his daughter and felt the tightness in his chest do something complicated. He turned back. Victoria was watching Lily too, with that same almost expression, the one that opened her face up and then closed again before it fully arrived. She's remarkable, she said, not a clinical observation, something real. She is, he said. She's the best thing I've got. He thought about that drive home. He thought about it while he made dinner pasta, because Lily had declared it pasta night with the unquestionable authority of someone who believes Tuesday-level decisions can be made on a Thursday. He thought about it while she ate and talked simultaneously about the giraffe, about her friend Maya at preschool, about whether ants went to sleep or just slowed down. And he answered each thing carefully, present the way he'd trained himself to be present. But under all of it, quieter than he was comfortable with, was the memory of Dr. Victoria Vale not filling the silence. He called Cole that night. He didn't mean to. He was looking at his phone for a message from base, and Cole's name was right there, and his thumb moved before his common sense did. Cole picked up on the second ring. "Hayes, it's 9 p.m. Is Lily okay?" "Lily's fine. She's asleep." He leaned against the kitchen counter. "I need to tell you something." "Do you?" "The woman from the park. The one Lily pointed at." A pause. Then slowly, "Yeah. She's Lily's speech therapist." Silence. Then a sound that might have been Cole setting something down. Then, "Get out." "I'm serious. That's not a real thing that happens." "It happened." "Nathan." Cole's voice had shifted. He could hear the grin in it, even through the phone. "Brother, do you understand what this is? It's a coincidence." "It's not a coincidence, it's a sign. I don't believe in signs." "You don't believe in signs because you haven't had one before. This is what they look like." Nathan pressed the bridge of his nose between his fingers. "She's a Forbes cover, Cole. She owns—" "I know what she owns." "Then you understand why, whatever you're thinking right now, I'm thinking you've been alone for 3 years and your 4-year-old daughter has better instincts than you do, and the universe just put this woman in your daughter's speech therapy room, which means at minimum you're going to see her every Tuesday for the next 2 months, which means I take my daughter to her appointments like a normal parent, and that's the end of it." Cole was quiet for a moment. When he spoke again, the grin was gone, and something steadier had replaced it. "Nathan, when's the last time you talked about Emma to someone who wasn't me, or a grief counselor?" He didn't answer. "What did you just say to her in there?" He still didn't answer. "Yeah," Cole said softly. "That's what I thought. Get some sleep, man. And don't talk yourself out of Tuesday before Tuesday gets here." Tuesday came anyway. Victoria's office looked the same. Lily went in ahead of him, located the giraffe basket within 6 seconds, and looked at Victoria with an expression of pure, patient expectation. Victoria looked back at her with absolute seriousness. "You ready to work first?" "Yes," Lily said gravely. "Then let's work first." Nathan sat in the corner chair. Not the waiting room this time. Victoria had offered to let him stay. Said, some children settled better with a parent present, and he watched Victoria work with his daughter. It was different seeing it. She had this quality precise, but never cold exacting, but never harsh. When Lily got something right, she didn't make a production of it. She just moved forward, which somehow communicated more confidence than any celebration would have. When Lily stumbled, Victoria just said, "Again. Try it again." Calm and matter-of-fact, like stumbling was simply part of the process and not worth any particular amount of drama. Lily responded to it immediately. She straightened up, tried harder. Lily, who at home could be bribed and reasoned with and occasionally negotiated into a corner, was sitting up straight and doing her exercises without complaint because Victoria Vale had looked at her and simply expected her to. He found himself watching Victoria more than Lily. The controlled precision of her. The way she tilted her head when she was listening. Really listening, like she was solving something. The moment brief gone in an instant when Lily nailed a particularly tricky word, and something broke open in Victoria's face. A real smile unguarded, and she caught herself before it went too far, and Nathan thought, there it is. There's the one underneath. After the session, Lily collected the giraffe for exactly the time it took Nathan to schedule the next appointment. Then she handed it back with great solemnity, and they walked out into the late afternoon. And Lily slipped her hand into his and said conversationally, "I like Dr. Vicky." "I know you do. She's serious, but she's nice inside." He looked down at her. "What makes you say that?" Lily considered it for a block and a half. "She looks at you like she's paying attention," she finally said. "Not everyone does." He didn't say anything to that. He just held her hand and walked and let it sit with him, the way he let all the truest things sit quietly, without trying to name them too fast. He was 3 blocks from the center when his phone buzzed. Unknown number. He answered. He, Mr. Hayes? Victoria's voice. Composed, but something underneath it. I apologize for calling you. Left Lily's insurance card at the front desk. Oh, yeah, I'll swing back. Don't worry about it tonight. We can keep it on file. A pause. Slightly longer than a professional pause. I wanted to say she did well today, really well. The progress in one session is better than I expected. She's motivated by the giraffe. A sound, almost a laugh. It's a powerful motivator. Another pause. How are you doing, Mr. Hayes? He stopped walking. Lily kept going for 2 steps and then stopped. 2 looked back at him. The question wasn't clinical. It wasn't, how is the scheduling working for you, or any concerns about the sessions. It was direct, personal. The kind of question that lands differently when you've spent 3 years with people carefully not asking it. Nathan, he said. Just Nathan. Nathan, she repeated. Like she was deciding something. I'm doing fine, he said. Better today, actually. Another pause, and then quieter. Good. She hung up. He stood on the sidewalk holding the phone, and Lily walked back to him and took his hand again and said, Who was that? Dr. Vale. Lily nodded like this was entirely expected. See? She said. See what? She smiled Emma's smile. God, it was Emma's smile exactly, and said, I told you, Dad, and pulled him forward down the street. He let himself be pulled. And for the first time in a long time, he didn't think about where he was going. He just went. The second Tuesday was easier than the first. The third was easier than the second. By the 4th week, Lily walked into Westview like she owned the building, straight past the front desk, straight down the hall, straight to Victoria's office door, which she knocked on with 3 precise knocks, the way Victoria had taught her to, and then waited with her hands folded like a small dignitary. Nathan watched this from 6 feet back and felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Something that didn't have a clean name. Warmth, maybe, the complicated kind. He'd stopped sitting in the corner chair after the second session. Victoria had suggested the waiting room not unkindly, just practically saying Lily was focusing better without the audience, and he'd agreed. But what that meant in reality was 45 minutes every Tuesday where he sat in a chair outside that door and thought about what was happening on the other side of it. Not just Lily's consonant blends, the other things. The way Victoria looked when she thought no one was watching. The way she'd said his name on the phone that first Tuesday. Nathan. Like she was deciding something. He'd replayed that more than he was proud of. Cole asked him about it every few days, with the specific relentless patience of a man who knows he's right and is content to wait for the universe to prove it. Nathan gave him less and less each time, which Cole seemed to find funnier with each passing week. You're doing that thing, Cole said one morning on base. What thing? The thing where you're feeling something and you're building a case against it at the same time. I'm eating breakfast, Cole. You've been staring at that coffee for 4 minutes. Nathan drank the coffee. Cole watched him with the satisfied expression of someone who has all the time in the world. She called me, Nathan said finally. Last week. Not about Lily. Cole set his fork down. What do you mean not about Lily? I mean it started about Lily, and then it became... He stopped. It was a long call. How long? 40 minutes. Cole stared at him. Nathan Hayes, you talked on the phone for 40 minutes. It's not a big deal. You hate talking on the phone. You once told me that phone calls are the most inefficient form of human communication. I was in a bad mood that day. You talked for 40 minutes. Cole leaned back in his chair and shook his head slowly, like he was witnessing something he'd always believed in, but never expected to actually see. What did you talk about? Nathan turned the coffee cup in his hands. Lily at first, then she asked about the Navy. What it's actually like, not the recruitment poster version. And I told her. He paused. And then she talked about her work, what it cost, the kind of hours she kept to get where she is. Another pause. She grew up without much. She never said it directly, but you could hear it in the way she talked about the building she works in. Like she still can't entirely believe she gets to be there. Cole was quiet for a moment. You like her? I don't know her. You just told me more about her in 30 seconds than you've told me about any person in 3 years. Cole, I'm just observing. Can you observe quietly? No. Cole picked his fork back up. Ask her to dinner, Nathan. I'm not... Coffee. Ask her to coffee. She's Lily's doctor. She's Lily's speech therapist for 4 more weeks. Then she's just a woman. Cole pointed the fork at him with great emphasis. A woman who called you for 40 minutes. About nothing. Nathan didn't have a good answer to that. He'd been trying to build one for a week, and it kept falling apart. The call that changed things happened on a Wednesday night 9:30, when Lily was asleep, and Nathan was sitting at the kitchen table with a repair form he'd been pretending to fill out for an hour. His phone lit up. Victoria. He answered before the second ring, and then felt slightly pathetic about that. Hey. Her voice was different, quieter, less composed than usual, like something had knocked the professional layer slightly loose. Hey, everything okay? A pause. Yes, I'm sorry, it's late. I should have... It's fine. What happened? A longer pause. He heard her exhale slow, the kind you do when you're deciding how much to say. I got a job offer today. Seattle, Harmon Medical Group. They're building a pediatric development center from the ground up, and they want me to run it. He didn't say anything immediately. He let it land. Let her have the space of it. That's big, he said. It's everything I've been working toward for 8 years. Her voice was steady, precise. The way she talked about things she'd already analyzed from every angle, but hadn't yet decided what to feel about. Chief of Developmental Pediatrics, full clinical oversight, research budget. I'd be building the program myself top to bottom. When do they need an answer? 3 weeks. Victoria. He said her name carefully, the way she'd said his that first time. Why are you calling me? The silence went on long enough that he started to think he'd pushed too far. And then she said very quietly, because I don't know what I want to do. And most of the people I'd call would tell me to take it without asking how I feel about leaving. And I didn't want that tonight. He sat very still. The kitchen was dark, except for the light over the stove. Somewhere in Lily's room, the sound machine was playing Ocean Waves, the same one Emma had bought when Lily was an infant, and he hadn't been able to make himself replace it. How do you feel about leaving? He asked. Another exhale. Scared, she said. Which doesn't make sense. I've relocated 3 times for my career. I'm good at starting over. A pause. It's different this time. I don't fully understand why. He understood why. He thought she probably understood why too. And that was the reason for the call, and neither of them was going to say it out loud yet. Tell me about Seattle, he said. So she did. She talked about the position, and the facility, and the research she'd been wanting to do for years. She talked about what it meant professionally, what doors it would open, what kind of legacy she could build. She talked with the controlled precision of a woman who had learned very early that ambition was one of the few currencies she could always count on. And then, gradually, the precision loosened, and she started talking about the things she wasn't sure about. The starting over. The city she didn't know. The way she'd built something here quietly over years. Not a big life, not a loud life, but a life that fit her. He listened. He was good at listening. The Navy had taught him that too, how to hear what someone meant underneath what they were saying. What would you do? She asked finally. If someone offered you everything you'd worked for and you didn't know if you wanted it anymore? He thought about it honestly. I'd ask myself what I was afraid of losing, he said. Not what I'd gain. What I was afraid of losing. Because that's usually the truest answer. A long silence. That's a very Nathan Hayes kind of answer. Is that bad? No. Something in her voice shifted, softened. It's one of the reasons I called. He pressed the back of his hand to his mouth. He was smiling. He hadn't noticed until just now. He was sitting alone in a dark kitchen at 9:30 at night, and he was smiling like an idiot, and he had absolutely no defense for it. Victoria. Yes. I'd like to take you to dinner. Not as Lily's dad, just dinner. The pause this time felt different from all the others, charged differently. Nathan, You don't have to decide anything tonight. Not Seattle, not this. You're allowed to... He stopped, started over. I'm not asking you to figure it all out. I'm asking if you want to have dinner with me. I don't date, she said. I've been very deliberate about that. Neither do I. You're making an exception. I'm attempting to. He let that sit. You don't have to. Another long silence. And then, there's a place on Meridian, the Italian one on the corner with the blue awning, Friday at 7. He exhaled. Friday at 7. Don't be late, she said. I leave if someone's more than 10 minutes late. I've never been late for anything in my life. I'm in the Navy. Good. And there, underneath the precision, underneath the composure, was that almost laugh, the real one. Good night, Nathan. Good night, Victoria. He sat with the phone in his hand for a while after she hung up. The ocean waves played in the next room. He thought about Emma gently, the way he'd learned to, not with the underwater weight of the early years, but with the particular tenderness of someone who carries a person's memory the way you carry a photograph. Present. Careful. Not a wound anymore. Something more like a compass point, a direction he'd come from that had shaped where he stood. He thought she would have liked this. Emma, who had believed fiercely in the idea that love was not a limited resource, that it didn't run out, that the human heart could hold more than one true thing at a time. She'd told him that once, not about death, not about the future, just in the middle of a completely ordinary conversation about something else, the way the truest things always arrive. He'd remembered it every time he'd been afraid that moving forward meant leaving her behind. He got up, checked Lily's door. She was asleep on her back with her arms out, the giraffe, the plastic one from Victoria's office that Victoria had eventually, inevitably allowed her to take home, tucked under one arm. He stood in the doorway for a moment. Just stood there. Friday at 6:59, Nathan Hayes walked into the Italian restaurant on Meridian and was seated at a table by the window. At 7 exactly, Victoria walked in. No driver tonight. Just her in a dark green dress, her hair down for the first time he'd seen, and she looked different. Not softer exactly. More like the controlled precision had been set aside by choice, not stripped away. She chose to be here. He could see that in every line of her. She sat across from him. They looked at each other for a moment. You're exactly on time, she said. I told you. She picked up the menu. He watched her and didn't pick up his own. You're staring, she said without looking up. You look different. Different bad. Different like you made a decision before you walked in here. She set the menu down. Looked at him directly, the full weight of that dark gaze. Is that a problem? No, he said. I like decisive people. Something broke through, not the almost smile this time, the real one, the full one, the one that changed everything in her face. Brief, but real. You're going to be difficult, she said. Probably, he agreed. But I'll always be on time. The dinner lasted 3 hours. He didn't plan for it to. He'd never been good at small talk, and apparently neither had she. So they skipped it entirely. Went straight to the things that mattered. The way two people do when they're both too tired and too honest for the performance of getting to know someone slowly. She talked about growing up in Detroit. A single mother, an apartment above a laundromat, the specific hunger of a kid who learns early that intelligence is the only asset no one can repossess. He talked about Ohio. A father who worked at a plant and never said much but showed up to every single thing Nathan had ever done, which Nathan had understood only later, was its own profound language of love. She told him that she'd been engaged once. 7 years ago. He was a surgeon. The relationship had been logical and compatible and completely wrong, and she'd ended it 4 months before the wedding, because she'd realized she was more relieved by the thought of the ending than afraid of it. "That's how I knew," she said, "that you'd made a mistake, that I'd been making a different kind of mistake my whole life." She turned her wine glass in her hands, treating everything like a risk calculation, even people. "And now," she looked at him, "I'm trying something different." He told her about Emma. Not the grief, not the darkness of it, he'd save that for later, if there was a later. But Emma herself, who she was, the library, the paperback corners, the way she'd been the kind of person who made every room feel more like itself, more settled, more real. He talked about her the way you talk about someone you loved honestly, without making them a saint, without drowning in the loss, just telling the truth of the person. Victoria listened the way she listened in her office, completely, without filling the spaces. When he finished, she said quietly, "She sounds like she was worth grieving." "She was," he said. "She still is." "That doesn't go away." "No, it changes. But it doesn't go away." He looked at her. "Does that bother you?" She held his gaze. "Honesty doesn't bother me," she said. "Pretending does." They split the check she insisted he conceded without much fight, because he could see it mattered to her, and he respected things that mattered to people. They walked out into the night air, and he walked her to the corner where her car was parked, and they stood on the sidewalk in the way two people stand when neither of them is ready for the conversation to be over, but neither has decided what comes next. "I haven't decided about Seattle," she said. "I know. I want to be clear about that. I haven't made decisions based on Victoria." He said it gently. "I know. I'm not asking you to." She exhaled. Something in her shoulders settled. "Lily's going to ask me about the giraffe on Tuesday. She's already asked me twice what I think the giraffe's name should be." "What did you tell her?" "I told her it was her call. She's been taking it very seriously." That real smile again. Longer this time. He stored it the way he stored things he didn't want to lose. "She's remarkable," Victoria said. "She was from the beginning. That first session she walked in and assessed the room in about 4 seconds, and then looked at me and said, 'I know what I'm supposed to practice,' like she'd already done the homework." "She had," Nathan said. "I didn't teach her that. She decides to be good at something, and then she is." "She's like you," Victoria said, and then she caught herself like she'd said something more revealing than she'd planned. He let it go. "Good night, Victoria." "Good night." She held his gaze for 1 extra second. "Nathan?" He walked back to his truck. He drove home. He paid Mrs. Kowalski, checked on Lily still asleep, Giraffe still present, and stood in the kitchen for a long time in the quiet dark. He was not afraid. He noticed that distinctly the absence of the fear he'd been carrying so long. It had started to feel structural, like a load-bearing wall. He was something else instead. Not certain, not reckless, just open. The way a window is open. No glass, no barrier, just the possibility of what comes through. His phone buzzed. A text. "Victoria, I had a good time tonight." That surprised me. He read it twice, then typed back, "Good surprises are allowed. 3 dots. Then I'm reconsidering my position on that." He set the phone down on the counter face up, and he looked at the ceiling of his quiet kitchen, and he thought about Lily's voice on a Sunday morning in a park. Dad marry her delivered with the absolute conviction of a person who has not yet learned that the world gives you reasons to be afraid. He thought maybe she was onto something. The text exchange that night had lasted until midnight. He hadn't planned for that either. But Victoria typed the way she talked, precise, then gradually less so. The professional layer peeling back one message at a time. The way paint does in an old house slowly, and then all at once. They'd started with something safe. Something about Lily's progress, and then somehow migrated to a conversation about whether ambition was a personality trait or a survival mechanism. And she'd said something that stopped him cold. I think for some of us, it's the same thing. He'd stared at that for a long time before answering. By 11, he was lying on his back on the couch with the phone held above his face like a teenager, which was embarrassing, and he'd decided firmly not to tell Cole about it. He told Cole about it the next morning. Cole's response was to put down his coffee, cover his face with both hands, and say nothing for approximately 15 seconds. Then he looked up. "You texted until midnight." "It wasn't planned. You texted a woman until midnight, and you're describing it like a mission debrief. I'm giving you the facts. Nathan." Cole leaned forward. "Do you understand what's happening to you right now?" "Nothing is happening to me." "Something is absolutely happening to you." Cole said it with the quiet certainty of a man watching a dam develop a crack. "And it's good. It's really good. So please, for the love of everything, don't wreck it." "I'm not going to wreck anything. You have a gift," Cole said carefully, "for deciding you don't deserve things right when they're arriving." Nathan opened his mouth, closed it, drank his coffee. Cole watched him with the patience of someone who had said the right thing and was content to let it work. The second dinner was a Thursday. Her suggestion this time. A smaller place, quieter, the kind where the tables were close together and you had to talk lower, and the whole setup forced a certain kind of intimacy, whether you wanted it or not. He arrived at 7 exactly. She was already there, which surprised him, and she looked up when he walked in with the expression of someone who had been composing themselves and was now choosing to stop. "You were early," he said, sitting down. "I'm always early, I just don't mention it." "Why not?" "Because punctuality is baseline. I don't reward baseline." But her eyes were warm when she said it, and he was getting better at reading the gap between what she said and what she meant. "How was your week?" he asked. "Complicated." She took a breath. The Harmon Group called again. They want to move the timeline up. They need an answer by end of next week. He kept his face neutral. "What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking—" She stopped, turned the water glass in her hands. "I'm thinking that I've been here for 6 years and I've never let myself get attached to a city before, and I can't tell if what I'm feeling right now is attachment or just fear of change." "What does it feel like?" She looked at him. "Like there's something here I'm not done with." He held her gaze. "Something. Don't push it." "I'm not pushing anything. You have a very particular way of asking questions that isn't technically pushing, but—" She stopped. A fractional smile. "You're infuriating." "I've been told." "By who?" "Mostly Cole, sometimes Lily." She laughed, a real one, not contained, and it moved through the whole restaurant, brief and bright, and the couple at the next table glanced over and smiled without knowing why, the way people always respond to a laugh that genuine. She caught it and pulled it back, and he watched her do it and thought, there it is. That's the one she keeps for herself. "I have a question," she said once she'd reassembled herself. "And I want an honest answer." "Okay. Is this—" She gestured slightly between them. "Are you doing this because you're ready, or because Lily pointed at me in a park, and you feel like the universe is telling you something?" He didn't answer immediately. She deserved the real answer, not the fast one. "Both," he said finally. "And I've been trying to figure out if that makes it less real. I don't think it does." "Explain that." "Lily said what she said because she's 4, and she's fearless, and she doesn't overthink. She was just honest." He leaned forward slightly. "The universe didn't put you in that park, Victoria. But I heard what she said, and I didn't forget it. That part was me." She was quiet. Then, "That's a very Nathan Hayes kind of answer." "You keep saying that. Because you keep being exactly who you appear to be." She said it like it was strange, like she'd never fully trusted it. "Do you know how rare that is?" He didn't look away. "Do you know how rare it is to have a conversation with someone who doesn't fill the silence?" She met his eyes for a long moment, and then quietly, like she was making a decision she'd already made, and was just now saying out loud, "I'm scared, Nathan. I want you to know that. I don't do this. I built my entire life on not needing things I wasn't sure I could keep." "I know." He said it gently. "I built mine on not wanting things I was afraid to lose." "What changed?" He thought about it. "Lily grows up a little every week. And every week I see her getting braver, walking up to strangers, making decisions, not being afraid of being wrong. And I think, where did she get that? Not from me, not from this version of me. He paused. I don't want her to learn from a man who stopped trying because he was afraid. Victoria pressed her lips together. Something moved through her face that she didn't try to contain this time. She's going to be extraordinary, she said. Her voice was slightly lower than usual. She already is. He looked at Victoria steadily. But she could use someone in her life who shows her that being extraordinary and also letting people in aren't two different things. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was the kind of silence that means something has landed, has found the place it was looking for, and now both people are sitting with the weight and the warmth of it. Victoria reached across the table and covered his hand with hers. Brief. Then she pulled it back and picked up her menu like nothing had happened, but her jaw was slightly set, in the particular way he'd come to recognize as her keeping herself together. He picked up his menu too. Neither of them spoke for a moment. I'm going to call Harmon on Monday, she said from behind the menu. What are you going to tell them? She didn't answer right away. He waited. I don't know yet, she said finally. But I'm going to make the decision for the right reason. Not because I'm running toward something, not because I'm running away from it either. She lowered the menu and looked at him. For the right reason. He nodded. That's all anyone can do. What Nathan didn't expect was the ambush. It came in the form of a phone call Saturday afternoon, a number he recognized from a part of his life he'd left in a specific careful place. Victoria's name. But the voice wasn't Victoria's. Mr. Hayes. Male voice. Smooth, confident, the specific confidence of money. My name is Richard Harmon. I believe you know Dr. Vale. Nathan stood very still in his kitchen. Lily was in the next room with her cartoons. Who gave you this number? I have resources. A pause. I'd like to talk with you about Victoria. Then talk to Victoria. I'm talking to you. The smoothness didn't crack. Dr. Vale is on the edge of making a significant career decision, one that will define the next decade of her professional life, and I've become aware that there are personal factors complicating her thinking. Personal factors, Nathan repeated, very flat. I don't mean any disrespect, Mr. Hayes. I've looked into your situation. You're a Navy serviceman. Single father. I understand the appeal of stability of connection. I understand what Dr. Vale represents to someone in your position. Nathan set down the dish towel he'd been holding. Slowly. Say that again. I'm simply suggesting that if you care about her as much as I assume you do, you'd want what's best for her career. What's best for her future? Harmon paused again, tactical. Seattle is an extraordinary opportunity. The kind of opportunity that only comes once. She would be building something that lasts generations. Her name on something that matters. She already has her name on things that matter. Children's speech therapy. The dismissal was exquisitely subtle, just barely there beneath the professionalism. That's meaningful work, of course it is, but Victoria Vale is capable of so much more, and I think part of you knows that keeping her here in a life that fits your needs. Stop. Nathan's voice came out low and absolutely flat. The voice he used exactly once before something became a problem. You're going to stop talking right now. A short silence. Mr. Hayes, I'm not keeping her anywhere. She makes her own decisions. That's not a personal quality I'm working around. It's the reason I respect her. He kept his voice controlled barely. And if you call me again to suggest that a woman's career ambitions and her personal life are a conflict I'm creating, I'm going to tell Victoria exactly what you said. Exactly how you said it. And then she's going to make her decision about you. A longer silence. That would be, goodbye, Mr. Hayes. He hung up. He stood in the kitchen for a long time. From the other room, Lily's cartoon played on. A character said something absurd, and Lily laughed her bright, uncomplicated laugh, and he breathed through it, the anger, the ugliness of the call, the specific chill of realizing that someone had looked at him and his daughter and calculated how much they mattered. Then he picked up his phone and called Victoria. She answered in 2 rings. "Hey, someone named Richard Harmon just called me." The silence was instant, and then, what? "He called me, told me I was complicating your career decision, implied that your life here was somehow beneath what you deserve." Nathan. I hung up on him. I told him I'd tell you. I'm telling you. He kept his voice level. "I don't want to make a decision for you. I'm not going to. But I thought you should know the kind of person you're negotiating with." She said nothing for a moment. When she spoke, her voice was controlled, but only barely. "He called you directly. He had my number. He said he had resources." God. The word came out sharp, brief, and then she went quiet with the particular quiet of someone who is very angry and very disciplined about it. "Nathan, I'm sorry." "Don't apologize for him." "I'm apologizing because you shouldn't have had to." "Victoria." He said it gently but firmly. "I'm not fragile. I'm telling you because you deserve to know, not because I need anything from you about it." Another silence, different this time. "You're infuriating," she said, but her voice had shifted entirely, something raw underneath it now. "Why are you so... what? Decent?" She said it like the word had weight she hadn't expected. "Why is it so effortless for you to just be decent?" "It's not effortless," he said honestly. "I almost said some things to that man that I would have regretted." "But you didn't." Lily was in the next room. She made a sound, not quite a laugh, not quite a sob, somewhere in between. He heard her breathe. "I'm going to call Harmon," she said. "Tonight." "You don't have to do it tonight." "Yes, I do." And he could hear it, the decision crystallizing, the precision of her, the way she moved toward things once she'd made up her mind. "I should have made this call before he made his." "Victoria." "I know." Her voice steadied. "I know. I'm not making this decision because of what he did. I'm making it because I already knew the answer, and I was rationalizing." A pause. "I'm scared. I want to say that again clearly. I am scared." "I know you are. And you're not going to tell me I shouldn't be." "No." He leaned against the counter. "Being scared is reasonable. Seattle is a real opportunity. That's real. But, no, but, that's it. It's real. And so is this. And you get to choose which real thing you build your life around." He paused. "I'm not going to tell you what to choose, Victoria. I'm not built that way. But I will tell you this, whatever you decide, the reason should be yours." The silence stretched out long and warm. He heard her exhale. Then, "Can I see you tomorrow?" "Yes." Lily too, if that's okay. Something unlocked in his chest. "She's going to ask about the giraffe." "I know. I have an answer prepared." "She's going to negotiate." "I'm aware. I've been practicing." He laughed. It came out low and real. "Tomorrow," he said. Sunday morning, Mill Haven Park. He hadn't planned it consciously, but then some things arrive at the place they started, and it feels less like planning and more like completion. The same bench, the same cold air. Lily beside him in her purple jacket, which she had now paired for reasons known only to her, with a sparkly headband and her rain boots, even though it hadn't rained in a week. She heard Victoria before she saw her, the sound of footsteps on the path, and Lily's head came up the way a dog's does when it recognizes something it loves. Dr. Vicky. Victoria came through the park gate and walked toward them, and she was different again, the third version of her he'd seen after the composed professional and the guarded woman at dinner. This version was in jeans and a coat, her hair down her hands in her pockets, and she walked toward them like she'd been thinking about this walk all morning and had decided on every step of it. Lily launched herself off the bench and covered the distance in approximately 4 seconds, and Victoria crouched down to catch her. and the surprise of it moved across her face, the complete, undefended surprise of someone who has been held carefully at arm's length from warmth for so long that it arrives like a shock. She held Lily for a moment. Just held her. Nathan stood, walked over. He stopped a foot away, and Victoria looked up at him over Lily's head, and her eyes were bright in the particular way eyes get when someone is refusing to cry and succeeding only mostly. "Hi," she said. "Hi." Lily pulled back and looked at Victoria with great seriousness. "Did you call the Seattle people?" Victoria looked at her. "I did." "What did you say?" Victoria glanced at Nathan. He kept his face neutral. Giving her nothing the way she'd given him nothing in the waiting room when he'd talked about Emma, just space and trust that she'd fill it the right way. She looked back at Lily. "I told them no thank you." Lily's face went through several rapid calculations. "Because of the giraffe." Victoria pressed her lips together. "Partly." "What's the other part?" Victoria looked at Nathan again, and this time she didn't look away. "Because there are things here," she said clearly, "that I'm not ready to leave." Lily looked between them with the all-knowing expression she'd been deploying for weeks, the expression that said she'd understood the situation long before anyone else, and was simply waiting for the adults to arrive at her conclusion. "I told you, Dad," she said. Victoria raised an eyebrow. "What did she tell you?" "That's—" He exhaled, shook his head. "That's a longer story." "I have time," Victoria said. Lily grabbed both their hands, one each, unilateral, decisive, exactly the way Emma would have done it, and started pulling them down the path toward the park, toward the morning, toward whatever came next. "Come on," she said, with the absolute authority of a small person who has already figured out where everyone is going. The ant is probably still working. Nathan caught Victoria's eye across the top of Lily's head. Victoria was smiling, the real one, the full one, the one that changed everything. And she wasn't pulling it back this time. She just let it be there. Let him see it. He felt the last of the load-bearing wall come down, not with a crash, just quietly. The way the best things end. Making room for what comes next. He held on to Lily's hand. He kept pace beside Victoria. And the three of them walked into the Sunday morning together, which was, when he thought about it later, exactly the way it should have begun. The ant was still working. Lily found it in the same crack in the same sidewalk as if it had never left, and she crouched over it with the focused reverence of a scientist confirming a hypothesis. Victoria crouched beside her without being asked, her coat pooling around her on the pavement, and the two of them studied the ant in complete companionable silence for almost a full minute. Nathan stood back and watched them. He didn't say anything. Some moments asked to be witnessed, not narrated. "He's carrying something," Lily said. "He is," Victoria said. "See that white piece? That's food. He's taking it back to his family." "Does he know where he's going?" "He always knows where he's going." Victoria tilted her head the way she did when she was thinking about how to translate something complex into something true. "He just has to keep moving to get there." Lily looked up at her. "Like Dad?" Victoria glanced at Nathan. He raised both eyebrows at her. She returned her attention to Lily with a composure he deeply respected. "Like a lot of people," she said. Lily accepted this and went back to the ant. Victoria stood, brushed off her coat, and came to stand beside Nathan. They didn't touch. They just stood there, shoulder to shoulder, watching his daughter conduct her investigation. "She's going to be a scientist," Victoria said quietly. "Or a judge," Nathan said. "She has strong opinions about what's fair." "Both, then." A pause. "She told me once during a session that her mom was a reader, that there were lots of books in the house when she was a baby." He looked at her. "When did she say that?" "Third session, I think, out of nowhere. She was working on a consonant cluster and she suddenly said, 'My mom loved books.' Dr. Vicky, do you love books?" Victoria's voice stayed steady, but only with the effort he recognized now. "I told her yes." She said, "Good. Dad needs someone who reads." He exhaled. She never told me that. She's been running this operation longer than either of us realized, Victoria said, and then gently without making it heavy. Emma sounds like she was a person who paid attention. She was. He paused. She would have liked you. How do you know that? Because she never had patience for people who weren't honest, and you are sometimes brutally honest. Victoria considered this. Is that a compliment? Completely. Lily stood up satisfied and came back to them. She took both their hands again, the same effortless presumption as before, like this was simply how they moved through the world. Now the three of them linked and said, "Can we get hot chocolate?" "It's 50 degrees, Nathan said. "That's cold," Lily said. "That's not that cold." "Nathan," Victoria said with great seriousness, "it's cold enough for hot chocolate." He looked at her. "You're siding with the 4-year-old. She makes a compelling case." Lily beamed. She had the look of someone whose long-term plan was proceeding exactly on schedule. "Dr. Vicky can come too," she said in the specific tone of someone granting a favor rather than extending an invitation. "Thank you," Victoria said, matching the tone exactly. "I accept." They walked to the small coffee stand at the edge of the park, the one Nathan knew Lily had been aware of for the entire morning, but had been holding in reserve because even at 4, she understood the value of choosing the right moment. He ordered 2 coffees and a hot chocolate with extra whipped cream because Lily's eyes had gone to the whipped cream immediately, and he knew which battles weren't worth fighting. They sat on a different bench this time, longer facing the pond. Lily sat between them. She wrapped both hands around her cup and sipped with great ceremony, and declared it perfect. Victoria drank her coffee and let the steam rise between her hands, and Nathan watched the water and felt for the first time in longer than he could precisely date that the particular weight he'd been carrying had shifted. Not gone. It would never be entirely gone, and he'd stopped wanting it to be, because the weight was also the evidence of what had mattered, but shifted, redistributed, carried differently. "I need to tell you something," Victoria said. She was looking at the pond. "Okay. When I called Harmon Monday when I told them no, he said something." She wrapped both hands tighter around the cup. "He said I was making an emotional decision, that I was letting sentiment cloud professional judgment. He said those words. Sentiment. Cloud." She paused. "And for about 30 seconds I almost let that land. Because it's the thing I've been told my whole career. Don't be emotional. Don't let personal factors compromise the work. Be the professional, not the person." Nathan didn't interrupt. He waited. "And then I thought about what you said. That the reason should be mine." She finally looked at him. "My reason wasn't sentiment. It was clarity. I finally had clarity for the first time in years, and someone was trying to tell me clarity was a weakness." Her jaw set. "I told him that the ability to recognize what you value is not a failure of judgment. It's the definition of it." "What did he say?" "He said he hoped I wouldn't regret it." "What did you say?" She picked up her coffee. "I told him I'd let him know in 20 years. A pause. "Then I hung up." Nathan laughed. Real low startled out of him. She looked pleased with herself, which was a good look on her, that rare momentary dropping of the composure, the quick flash of satisfaction. He'd started cataloging these moments the way you catalog things you want to keep. Lily, who had been listening to all of this with the quiet attention of someone who understands more than the adults think, said, "What's sentiment?" "Feeling something," Victoria told her. Lily nodded. "Feeling something is good," she said decisively. Then she went back to her hot chocolate. Victoria looked at Nathan over Lily's head. He looked back, and neither of them needed to say anything at all. Hi. 3 weeks later, Cole met Victoria for the first time. It was not planned. Nothing involving Cole was ever entirely planned in Nathan's experience. He materialized at the park the following Sunday, the way he always materialized places, which was to say, suddenly and with an enormous amount of presence, and no particular apology about it. Nathan saw him coming from 50 yards out and had exactly enough time to think, "Oh no, before Cole was there grinning, extending a hand to Victoria, with the openness of a man who had been rooting for this development for months. "Victoria Vale," Cole said, shaking her hand. "I've been hearing about you." "Interesting," Victoria said, with the precise composure that Nathan had learned concealed either amusement or alarm, and often both simultaneously. "I've heard very little about you." Cole looked at Nathan. "She's exactly like you described." "I didn't describe her," Nathan said. "You described her perfectly," Cole said cheerfully, and crouched down to Lily's level. "Miss Lily, you're looking very official today," Lily assessed him. "Dad says you're his best friend." "That's exactly right." "He doesn't have a lot of friends," Lily said with the frank ruthlessness of someone who loves you. "No," Cole agreed. "He's very selective." He glanced up at Victoria. "He picked well this time." Nathan stared at the middle distance and practiced the breathing technique he'd learned at basic training that helped in extreme situations. Victoria said, "He hasn't told me very much about you, which I suspect means you know things I'd find useful." "I know everything," Cole said. "Ask me anything." "Victoria," Nathan said, "you don't have to." "Tell me one thing about him that he'd never tell me himself," Victoria said. Cole stood up to his full height and thought for approximately half a second. "When Lily was 18 months old and couldn't stop crying one night, and this went on for 2 hours. He sat in the rocking chair in her room and sang to her. Not a real song. He made up words to a melody that didn't exist. For 2 hours. She finally fell asleep, and he stayed in the chair for another 45 minutes because he was afraid moving would wake her." Cole looked at Nathan with the expression of complete, unashamed affection. "I only know because he told me afterward, not like it was something sweet, like it was just what needed doing." Victoria was quiet. She looked at Nathan, and he was looking at the pond, and his jaw was slightly set. "That's him," Cole said simply. "That's who he is." The months moved the way good months do, in increments you don't notice until you look back and realize how far you've come. November arrived, then December, and the city put up its lights, and Lily decided that Christmas required maximum effort, and threw herself into it with the organizational ferocity she brought to everything she cared about. Victoria was there for the tree. Nathan hadn't planned that either. She'd come by Saturday afternoon to return a book she'd borrowed. Lily had answered the door, and that had been the end of any plan. Lily had simply incorporated Victoria into the afternoon the way she incorporated everything she valued, which was completely and without negotiation. Victoria had helped hang ornaments with the focused seriousness of someone who had not done this in a very long time and was treating it as a project worth doing well. She and Lily had debated the placement of a ceramic star for 7 minutes. They'd reached a compromise. The star was near the top, slightly left of center, and both of them were satisfied. Nathan had stood in the kitchen doorway watching and felt the specific, complicated emotion of a person who is happy and also aware of how far they've traveled to get here, and aware, too, of who they'd lost along the way. He'd let himself feel both things. He'd learned slowly that they didn't cancel each other out. Later, after Lily was in bed, he and Victoria sat on the couch with the tree lights on and the rest of the apartment dark. She was reading. He was reading. The silence was the comfortable kind, the kind that proves something, because silence between two people who aren't comfortable with each other never feels like that. It feels like a problem to solve. "Nathan," she said without looking up from her book. "Yeah." "I want to say something, and I need you to let me finish before you respond." He set his book down. "Okay." She set hers down too. She turned to face him, and in the low light from the tree she looked different than she did in daylight, less guarded. The precision softened the deliberate containment she wore like a second coat laid aside for the night. She looked like herself. The underneath version. The one he'd been catching glimpses of since the first Tuesday in the waiting room. "I didn't know what I was missing," she said. "That's what I want to say. I'm not someone who lets herself want things she doesn't think she can keep. So I told myself for a long time that I didn't need this. Not this specifically, not a relationship, not—" She stopped, collected herself. not a family. I told myself that what I was building professionally was enough. And it was enough. It was a real life. I'm not pretending I was miserable before. I know, he said. But I was living at a distance from myself, she said. The way you can run a perfect operation and still be outside looking in. She held his gaze. Lily walked into my office and assessed the room in 4 seconds, and then looked at me, and I thought, this child is completely present. Completely in her own life. No distance at all. Her voice had gone quieter. I wanted that. I didn't even know I wanted it until I was sitting across from her. He didn't say anything yet. He'd promised. And then I met you, she said. And you were... A small pause. You were so unafraid to be exactly what you are. Tired and grieving and devoted and honest. All of it at once without apologizing for any of it. And I thought I've spent my entire adult life apologizing for taking up space. Professionally, personally, every room I walked into, I was calculating how much room I was allowed. She exhaled. You never made me calculate. He held her gaze and waited. I love you, she said, clear, direct, the way she did everything that mattered. I want to be clear about that because I'm not a person who says things I don't mean, and I don't want there to be ambiguity about where I stand. A pause. That's everything. You can respond now. He was quiet for a moment. Not because he didn't know what to say, because it deserved the right words and not the fast ones. I fell for you, he said in the waiting room. When you looked at Lily the way you did and then caught yourself. I thought there's the real one, the one underneath. He leaned forward slightly. I've been watching for her ever since. He reached out and took her hand. I love you. And I'm not afraid of that anymore. I want you to know that specifically I'm not doing this in spite of being afraid. I'm doing it because I'm not. She looked at him. Her eyes were bright again, that particular brightness she allowed herself once in a while when she stopped managing it. You're going to make me cry, she said with enormous dignity. You're allowed. I don't cry. You don't run from things that matter either, he said. But here you are. She pressed her lips together hard. Then she leaned forward and put her forehead against his, and they stayed like that in the dark with the Christmas tree and the sound machine down the hall doing its ocean waves, and it was so quiet and so steady that it felt like the thing you find after a very long time, looking without knowing that's what you were doing. Christmas morning. Lily came down the stairs at 6:14. Nathan knew because he'd been awake for an hour. The specific alertness of a man who knows the exact level of chaos incoming, and stopped at the bottom of the stairs when she saw Victoria sitting on the couch, with a mug of coffee, already awake, already there. Lily looked at her for a long moment. Then she looked at Nathan, then back at Victoria. You slept here, she said. On the couch, Victoria said. Your dad slept in his room. Lily considered this with the thorough assessment of a prosecutor examining a witness. Then she crossed the room and climbed up onto the couch next to Victoria, tucked herself under Victoria's arm the way she did with Nathan, and picked up Victoria's coffee mug to smell it. Yuck, she said. I agree, Victoria said. Your father makes terrible coffee. Hey, Nathan said. It's terrible, Lily confirmed solemnly. Then she looked up at Victoria. Did you get presents? I did, from my friend Margaret. She sent them to the office. Lily processed this. You don't have family Christmas. A pause. Not painful, but real. Not really, Victoria said. It's just me. Lily sat up straight and looked at her with the particular expression of someone who has just identified an obvious solution to a problem that the adults have been making too complicated. You can have ours, she said simply. Victoria held very still. Her hand resting on the back of the couch tightened slightly. Yeah. Lily said it like it wasn't even a question because to her it wasn't. We have enough. Nathan stood in the kitchen doorway. He didn't say anything. This moment wasn't his to speak in. He just watched Victoria Vale, who had built hospitals and refused board positions, and held herself at precise professional distance from everyone and everything that might compromise her control over her own life. Look at a 4-year-old and completely lose the fight against crying. She got one tear, which she dealt with immediately. Then she pulled Lily closer and said, "Thank you. I'd like that very much." Lily patted her arm the way she sometimes patted Nathan's, the old soul comfort of a child who learned early that sometimes what people need is just to be steadied. "Don't be sad," she said. "I'm not," Victoria said. And it was true. Nathan could see that it was true. The brightness in her eyes was not grief. It was something that had been held at arm's length for too long, finally allowed to arrive. Chub. In January, Nathan was assigned a 4-week deployment. It wasn't long he'd been away longer, much longer in years past, but it was the first deployment since Lily was old enough to understand time and absence, and the first one since Victoria, and both of those facts weighed on him differently than any deployment before. He told Victoria the same night he found out. No preamble, straight to it. 4 weeks, he said, starting the 14th. She was quiet. He watched her process it, the quick internal triage she did when information arrived that she hadn't planned for sorting it, finding the place to put it that let her keep functioning. "Lily," she said, "Mrs. Kowalski will take the mornings. I'll arrange after-school care." He paused. "I wasn't going to ask you." "I'll help," she said immediately, "if you'll let me." "Victoria, you have a practice. You have Nathan." She said his name the way she'd learned to say it, not a word a signal. Stop deflecting. "I'll help. That's not negotiable." He looked at her for a moment. Then he nodded. "Lily's school pickup is at 3:15. She needs a snack within an hour or she gets—" "I've seen what happens when her blood sugar drops," Victoria said. "I have snacks in my office already." He stared at her. "You have snacks in your office for my daughter. I have snacks in my office for my patients." A pause. "And your daughter?" "Yes." He crossed the distance between them in 2 steps and held her the way he'd learned to hold her firmly, without apology. The way you hold things you're afraid of losing and have decided to stop being afraid of losing. She held on back her face against his shoulder, and they stood there in the kitchen until she pulled back and straightened and looked up at him, with the particular look that said she'd made her peace with something. "Come back," she said. Not a demand. A fact. The way she stated all facts that mattered. "I always come back," he said. "I know." She pressed her palm flat against his chest, brief, sure. "Come back to us." Us. He felt the word settle. Small and enormous. The 3 of them a unit that had assembled itself piece by piece in parks and waiting rooms and late-night phone calls and Christmas mornings, as quietly and as certainly as anything he'd ever been part of. "Yeah," he said, "to us." Jate. The deployment was 31 days. He counted not in grief this time, not in the gray mechanical way he'd counted the days after Emma, but forward, counting toward something. Victoria sent him one message every morning. Not long. She was not a person who performed affection. She expressed it with precision and consistency, which he'd come to understand was her specific language of love. 7 a.m. without exception. A sentence or two. The important things. Lily decided the giraffe's name is Gerald. Non-negotiable, apparently. Or, she corrected my pronunciation of a word today. She was right. Or once on a Tuesday, that had been hard for him in ways he hadn't detailed. "You're not invisible to us. Come home." He read that one 3 times and then put his phone away and went back to work, which was all he could do, and it was enough. Lily sent him drawings through Victoria's phone. An ant. A giraffe that was labeled Gerald in Lily's careful block letters. A picture of 3 figures, one tall, one medium, one small, holding hands in a park. She'd labeled them too. Dad, Vicky, me. He kept that one. He kept it the way he kept the photograph of Emma present, careful the testimony of what was real and what was worth the weight of carrying. He came home on a Thursday afternoon. Victoria had picked Lily up from school. He walked through the apartment door at 4:30, and Lily hit him at approximately 30 miles an hour, full force, no warning, the way she had since she was old enough to run. He caught her. He always caught her. He held her until her grip loosened from the desperate to the comfortable, and then he looked up. Victoria was standing in the doorway to the kitchen. She'd been cooking. That was recent. The cooking something she'd started doing in his apartment on the nights she was there, with the intense focus she brought to new skills. She had a dish towel over her shoulder, and her hair was slightly uneven, and she looked domestic. Settled. A word he'd never associated with her until he'd realized it was what she'd been reaching for all along. "Hey," he said. "Hey." She walked toward him. She stopped in front of him and looked at him the way she looked at things she was checking carefully, thoroughly, making sure everything was still in place. Then she put her hand on the side of his face. Brief. "Sure. You look tired." "I'm fine." "You look tired," she repeated with the tone that meant don't argue. Lily, still attached to him, said into his shoulder, "She made pasta. She practiced while you were gone." "It's better than last time," Victoria said. "Marginally." "It's a lot better," Lily said with the loyalty of a connoisseur. Victoria looked at Nathan. He looked at her. And underneath the tired and the 31 days and the particular re-entry weight of coming home from deployment, something slid back into alignment, the way a door settles back into a frame that was built for it. "Thank you," he said, "for being here." "Where else would I be?" she said. And she meant it. Completely. He could see that she meant it in a way she hadn't been capable of meaning it 8 months ago, or even 6. That the question wasn't rhetorical, but declarative. A statement of the decision she'd been making one day at a time since a Sunday morning in Millhaven Park, when a 4-year-old had pointed at her and a man on a bench had reached out and grabbed his daughter's arm. Where else would she be? Here. This kitchen. This family that had found her, or that she had found, or that had assembled itself around the particular gravity of a little girl who had always known what she wanted and had simply waited for the adults to agree. In February, Nathan bought a ring. He didn't tell Cole first. He didn't tell anyone. He walked into a small jewelry store on a Wednesday after his shift, told the woman behind the counter what he was looking for, and described not a size or a style, but a person. He described Victoria, the precision and the warmth underneath it, the woman who had snacks in her office and cried one tear on Christmas morning, and sent 7 a.m. messages with the reliability of a person who had decided that reliability was its own kind of love. The woman behind the counter listened and then showed him 3 options, and he knew immediately the way. You know when something is exactly right without deliberation. He kept the ring in his jacket pocket for 3 weeks. He wasn't afraid. He wanted to be clear about that, even if just to himself, he was not afraid. He was waiting for the right moment, which was different. Fear waits because it doesn't want to arrive. He was waiting because this deserved to arrive perfectly. The right moment came on a Sunday. Of course it did. Millhaven Park. The bench. October had come back around, the same cold bite in the air, the same bare trees, the same quality of light. Lily was 3 feet away, crouched over the same crack in the sidewalk, or what might have been the same one, he couldn't be sure, checking on the ant situation with the same patient gravity she'd always brought to it. Victoria was beside him on the bench. Their shoulders touched. They'd been talking about something small, something ordinary and domestic and entirely theirs, and it had trailed off into comfortable silence. He reached into his jacket pocket. "Victoria." She turned, looked at him, saw something in his face. Her expression went very still. He held the ring between them. Not on one knee, he'd thought about it and decided that wasn't them. What was them was this. A bench, a park, a cold Sunday morning, honest and unperformed. "I'm not asking you to change your life," he said. "I'm asking if you want to build one, with me and Lily. I know what that means, the deployments, the school pickups, the fact that she's already negotiating about the giraffe and she's 5. He kept his eyes on hers. I know it's complicated. I know you didn't plan for any of this. I didn't either. Nathan, let me finish. He'd said it to her once before. She let him. I don't have what you could have had in Seattle. I don't have a board or a building with your name on it. I have a daughter who loves you and a kitchen that needs better coffee and 31 days a year when I'm somewhere else and you'd have to hold everything together. He paused. I have a life that already has you in it. And I'm asking if that's enough. If we're enough. Victoria looked at the ring. Looked at him. Looked across at Lily, who had stopped crouching and was now standing very straight watching them with the expression of someone who knew exactly what was happening and had been expecting it for a very long time. Lily, Victoria said, did you know about this? Lily considered the ethics of the question carefully. Maybe, she said. She helped pick the park, Nathan said. Victoria's face did the thing, the opening the real one, the full unguarded version, and she didn't pull it back. She just let it be. Let him see all of it. You two, she said, and her voice was completely wrecked and completely certain. You absolute two. Is that a yes? Lily asked with enormous practicality. Victoria looked at Nathan. Her eyes were bright with that particular brightness he'd been storing up. Yes, she said. That's a yes. He put the ring on her finger, and she looked at it for a moment, with the expression of someone who has received something they'd convinced themselves they didn't need, and now cannot imagine having lived without. Then she looked up at him, and the smile came, the real one, the full one, the one that changed everything, and she did not pull it back. Not even slightly. Lily crossed the distance between them at speed, and inserted herself between them on the bench, with the authority of someone who has engineered the entire situation and is simply claiming her rightful place in it. She looked at the ring. She looked at Victoria. She looked at Nathan. I told you, Dad, she said. He laughed. Victoria laughed. It moved through both of them and out into the cold Sunday morning, out across the park, out past the bare trees and the dog walkers, and the couples with strollers, out past all of it. Yeah, Nathan said, pulling both of them close. You told me. And sitting on that bench in the October cold with his daughter pressed against his side and the woman he loved on his other, Nathan Hayes understood that some things don't begin the way you expect. Not with planning or intention or courage, but with a child's outstretched finger and a voice that doesn't yet know how to be afraid. Lily had known before any of them. She had looked at a stranger in a park and seen not a stranger, but an answer. She had looked at her father's quiet grief and decided with the absolute authority of someone who loves without conditions that he deserved more. And she had been right. She had been right from the very beginning. That was the whole story, and it was enough, more than enough. It was everything.